It needs to be said. I can relate to that young lady, and I felt for her.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it's like to be hated. I know what it's like to be a black woman and hated because of my
Skin.
color.
Yeah.
Now, what I would love Caitlyn to do is get up one time and then just slap the out of her.
But there is a deeper issue happening here that most fans are completely overlooking. When we look closely at how veterans are treating the rising stars, the reality gets pretty ugly. Consider what happens when one of the absolute greatest legends of women's basketball watches a rookie get targeted. She sees the most talented young player in the league being singled out by some highly questionable tactics. Cheryl Miller just dropped some highly explosive comments regarding how Brittney Griner treated Caitlin Clark on the court. Her sharp take has completely shaken up the basketball community, raising serious questions about sportsmanship. Have we ever seen a rookie star targeted the way Caitlin Clark has been this season? After watching recent games, Cheryl Miller admits her entire perspective on the modern WNBA has shifted. That shift is exactly why Brittney Griner is taking heat. In reality, Clark is facing what Miller faced. Back when Miller dominated from 1982 to 1986, rivals simply could not match her skills. Instead of playing smarter, opponents resorted to physical intimidation to slow her down. But Miller drew a line, and this is where the comparison to Brittney Griner gets really interesting for hoops analysts. Miller knows the difference between hard-nosed, championship-level defense and what looks more like a mob mentality. She called the physical targeting of Caitlin Clark the most cowardly act she has seen in decades. That is a massive statement coming from one of the most respected figures in basketball history. It highlights a growing frustration with how established veterans are handling the league's new talent pool. The tension boiled over in a recent game, leading to a viral clip that everyone is talking about. Right after a hard foul, Brittney Griner seemed to lose her cool completely. Cameras caught her mouthing something highly controversial, which many lip readers claim was some trash talk. Some think she used a racial slur, while others argue she was just complaining about a bad call. Either way, Griner was clearly frustrated on the court, and so far, she has stayed totally silent. That silence is raising eyebrows. Usually, players accused of making racial remarks rush to clear their name. They would issue an immediate statement clarifying that they only complained about a terrible referee decision. When Cheryl Miller analyzed the footage of Brittney Griner shoving Caitlin Clark, her reaction was immediate and blunt. She made it clear that Griner's conduct went far beyond standard competitive physical play. Miller's breakdown of the exact moment the shove occurred has reportedly left Brittney Griner devastated. The legendary champion raised a critical point about on-court etiquette that many fans had been whispering about. Before Miller spoke out, no one with her legendary status had the courage to address it directly. Taking cheap shots at an opponent who is looking the other way is not championship defense. Miller reminded everyone that her 1980s era was arguably the most physical in history. But even back then, if you had a problem, you faced your opponent head-on like a competitor. You did not wait for them to turn around. That cowardly approach is what offended Miller most. She felt Brittney Griner's actions severely damaged her own standing as an elite professional athlete. What really frustrated the Hall of Famer, however, was Griner's defensive reaction after the game. Instead of apologizing or admitting she crossed the line, Griner claimed the media was unfairly targeting her. She complained that she was damned if she did and damned if she didn't. Hearing those excuses only made Cheryl Miller more furious about the lack of accountability. True legends take full responsibility for their actions, especially when they risk injuring another player on court. Miller noted that playing the victim reminded her of players who knew they could not compete fairly. When athletes feel outmatched at the highest level, they often resort to playing the victim. They look for cheap ways to impact the game because they lack real competitive drive, skills to match that elite potential. To Cheryl Miller, she is just a subpar player relying on unethical tactics. That is where Miller's sharp analysis really highlights a fascinating angle on Caitlin Clark. Cheryl Miller believes that Caitlin Clark possesses those identical, rare qualities that defined her own legendary career. We are talking elite basketball IQ, an unreal clutch shooting gene, and most importantly, that rare gift to elevate every single teammate. But as a purist who respects the game, Miller also spots a trend that deeply concerns her. This hyper-talented young guard must constantly watch her back for cheap shots and dirty plays, instead of just focusing on maximizing her unlimited ceiling. Cheryl Miller claims that the approach from Brittney Griner represents everything that is wrong with how opponents target Caitlin Clark, rather than stepping up to match her elite skill or simply outworking her through pure grit and preparation. It is a highly disturbing pattern where she gets physically targeted when she is completely vulnerable. To Cheryl Miller, this is the absolute worst brand of competition imaginable. Naturally, these heavy words from Cheryl Miller have the entire basketball community buzzing. Miller even compared Caitlin Clark's current ordeal to her own legendary battles against physical intimidation back in the day. Yet, she quickly pointed out a major difference that both elevates and contextualizes Caitlin Clark's current reality. At just 22 years old, Caitlin Clark is dealing with more intense scrutiny and pressure than most pros encounter in a lifetime, and she is doing it while carrying the massive load of being the sport's undisputed face. Previously, a player could bring a laptop and relax, maybe get some quiet work done, but now, massive crowds are packed into the stands, watching our every move. People are screaming crazy things about the play on the floor, piling on intense pressure to score, as if we exist solely for their entertainment. The environment feels totally toxic. I even spotted a father and daughter in the crowd, both screaming. I could not make out the exact words, but it was either criticism of my play or just some light racism. Meanwhile, Cheryl Miller's sharp take on Brittney Griner's future in this league is spreading rapidly across social media platforms right now. You really have to hear this. Cheryl Miller argues that if the WNBA permits players like Brittney Griner to target elite stars with zero consequences, it sends a clear signal that average athletes can use dirty tactics to remain relevant, rather than building their actual on-court game. She warns that this set of circumstances establishes a terrible precedent, threatening to push out the players who elevate the players who elevate the players. Entire standard. Cheryl Miller went a step further, arguing that the league's soft stance on these Plainson-Beloden incidents sends a terrible message to youth watching at home. Instead of showing kids how to bully opponents, she believes the WNBA should highlight fundamental skill, hard work, and clean sportsmanship. Yet, the most crucial takeaway from Cheryl Miller's take was her bold projection for Caitlin Clark's future. Even amid these heavy trials, she insisted that Caitlin Clark is built for conflict, and every hard foul, dirty sequence, or intimidation attempt only fuels her drive to assert dominance using sheer basketball genius. Cheryl Miller drew parallels between Caitlin Clark's current path and her own rookie year, when opponents constantly tested her physically to find out if she would crack. The key difference, as she noted, is that Caitlin Clark is facing these physical challenges under an unprecedented media spotlight and the massive hype that comes with being the most marketable brand in WNBA history. This explains why Cheryl Miller's strong support for Caitlin Clark is so vital. She is not just defending a star, she is protecting the sport's actual soul. She believes Caitlin Elizabeth Clark embodies everything great about the sport, combining supreme skill, vision, class, and drive. On the flip side, she sees everything threatening the game, manifested in players like Brittney Griner. The legendary veteran made it clear that the WNBA is at a critical crossroads. They have two choices. They can either continue allowing limited players to use cheap strategies to remain in the spotlight, or they can protect and showcase their premier stars, allowing generational talents like Caitlin Clark to reach their true peak while elevating the entire product. Cheryl Miller's warning was unmistakable. The future of this league hangs on the choice they make, leading to the ultimate question: will WNBA decision-makers take Cheryl Miller's warning to heart and protect Caitlin Clark, or will they continue to let physical enforcers like Brittney Griner rely on highly questionable tactics to damage the league's reputation? The sports world is grappling with whether these wild escalations are starting to overshadow the game, especially after Cheryl Miller's utterly damning critique of Brittney Griner. Many wonder if she is being overly critical, or if her harsh assessments are entirely justified. More importantly, people wonder if the WNBA will eventually move to protect its biggest star from these highly dangerous physical plays. The situation demands immediate, decisive action. Security and fair play are on the line, and everyone is waiting to see how officials handle this pressure to ensure that actual basketball takes precedence over hostile physical altercations. It is clear that Caitlin Clark's treatment in the WNBA may finally change, following Cheryl Miller's highly charged inflammatory remarks. The entire basketball community is closely watching this situation unfold. Many are tired of seeing Caitlin get targeted. If the league doesn't step up and protect her, things will get ugly fast. One reality is becoming impossible to ignore as this narrative unfolds. A single game, one hard foul, or one controversial incident are no longer the sole topics of that debate. This is about the future of women's basketball, the league's physical standards, and how its premier stars are treated under the brightest lights. Very few athletes have ever faced the immense pressure and expectations Caitlin Clark carries into her professional career. Millions tune in to watch. Every single move she makes is dissected from every angle. Every triumph is celebrated, and every setback dominates the headlines. Being a marquee name in modern sports requires exactly that. Meanwhile, veteran players across the league are still executing at the highest level, bringing intense physical pride and years of battle-tested experience. Making sure this fierce competitiveness never crosses the line into dangerous, reckless play is the ultimate challenge. Fans demand intense matchups. They want fierce rivalries and real basketball. But they also demand baseline safety, fairness, and respect. Cheryl Miller's remarks triggered a massive storm because they come from an icon who knows exactly what it takes to perform under relentless pressure. Over her legendary career, Miller battled the most punishing defenders and physical enforcers the sport has ever produced. Still, her point wasn't just about grit. It was about protecting the sport's integrity and keeping the focus on pure skill, not constant drama. Whether you stand firmly behind Miller's sharp take or believe the entire situation has been completely blown out of proportion, her heavy words have clearly ignited the basketball community. How the league reacts when marquee players are targeted with excessive physicality remains a fierce debate among analysts, former players, and passionate fans. Do the referees need to call things tighter? Should front offices hand out heavier fines? Or is this simply the physical reality of professional basketball? Right now, everyone has a completely different answer. Caitlin Clark's response is undeniable. She keeps focusing on the game instead of letting outside distractions, hostile defense, or harsh media criticism dictate her narrative. She simply shows up to compete and prove why fans believe she represents the future of the sport. Her relentless resilience is exactly why fans remain fiercely loyal. Meanwhile, the WNBA is drawing record-breaking crowds and generating massive online engagement every single day. Arenas are packed, ratings are soaring. A whole wave of new fans is discovering women's basketball for the very first time. This heightened scrutiny impacts how the entire league is viewed worldwide, far beyond any single franchise or player. The stakes are rising fast as the season progresses. Moving forward, every matchup that Caitlin Clark plays will be heavily scrutinized. Every hard whistle will be analyzed, and every call will face intense debate. Each matchup adds another chapter to the most scrutinized season in modern league history. The burning question remains whether Cheryl Miller's explosive comments accurately capture the internal tension brewing in the league. Many wonder if the WNBA is taking proper precautions to safeguard its stars while still encouraging hard-nosed, highly competitive defense. How this high-stakes drama impacts the growth of players like Caitlin Clark and Brittney Griner remains to be seen. The long-term direction of the league hangs in the balance as front offices weigh player safety against entertainment value. This debate will continue to shape the sport as physical play is redefined. Every game has become a battleground for the soul and style of women's basketball, prompting deep discussions on safety and style. With rivalries intensifying and the stakes reaching new heights, the continuous clash between old-school physicality and rising modern superstars ensures that new chapters of women's basketball history are being written on the court every single night. Take a look right here. This development could be even more significant than the last one. It completely shifts the balance of power, forcing rival front offices to scramble and rethink their entire strategy. The stakes are that high.